Today with Jenna and Friends, studio pulsed with its usual morning energy, camera crews hustling behind the scenes, producers whispering into headsets, and audience members clapping along to the cheery theme music. The moment the announcer called his name, the room erupted into applause. Kevin Hart burst through the stage doors like a firecracker, flashing his megawatt grin, waving to the fans, and hyping up the crowd with his usual high-octane charm. Jenna turned in her chair, smiling brightly. Ladies and gentlemen, the man who never sleeps, the funniest guy on the planet, Kevin Hart. Kevin struck a playful pose, looking around dramatically. You're damn right, I'm small but mighty. Coffee ain't got nothing on me this morning. The crowd roared with laughter, and for a while, everything was perfect, Kevin cracking jokes, Jenna giggling, the energy buzzing like electricity. The early part of the interview flowed easily. They talked about his new action comedy film, the insane training he did for the stunts, and a few funny behind-the-scenes moments. Jenna teased him about being the busiest man in Hollywood, and Kevin fired back with a grin, if I stop working, I might actually have to spend time with my kids, and they scare me. The laughter was loud and genuine. Everything was light, friendly, until Jenna's co-host, Milo, adjusted his cue cards and said casually, Kevin, speaking of honesty, there's been a lot of conversation about your recent podcast comments on cancel culture and comedy limits. You've been trending again, people are divided. Do you think comedians are unfairly targeted now? Kevin's smile faltered just slightly, a flicker that most people might have missed, but cameras didn't. Oh, he said slowly, sitting back. We're doing that today. Jenna, sensing the shift, smiled carefully. Well, it's a big conversation. You've been very vocal about it. Kevin's tone shifted, still calm, but laced with an undercurrent of frustration. You know, it's wild. Every time I sit on a couch, people want to make me the face of cancel culture, like I'm the damn spokesman for controversy. I'm just a comedian, not the president of free speech. Some nervous laughter fluttered through the studio. Jenna tried to soften the tension. Sure, but people also see you as someone with influence. You reach millions, Kevin. That's powerful. Kevin nodded, but his expression darkened. And I use that power to make people laugh, not to start fights online. But it feels like no matter what I say, someone's waiting to twist it. Milo leaned forward, but don't you think that's part of being in the spotlight? With your platform comes accountability. Kevin's laugh was short, sharp. Accountability. Man, I've been accountable since 2018. I've said sorry more times than I can count. You know what happens after you apologize 50 times? People still find a reason to be mad. At some point, you just get tired of saying sorry for being human. The audience went silent. The air seemed to thicken. Jenna straightened slightly, her smile turning cautious. I get that, but the public conversation isn't always about dragging you down. Sometimes it's about evolving together. Kevin looked at her, the usual sparkle gone from his eyes. Evolving together? Nah, that sounds nice on TV, but in real life, it's just waiting for someone to mess up so you can trend again. That's not evolution, that's entertainment. The co-hosts shifted in their seats. Producers backstage whispered frantically, signaling Jenna to move on, but she hesitated. Kevin, I think what people appreciate about you is your honesty. But sometimes your tone. He cut her off, voice rising slightly. My tone? Come on, Jenna, that's the problem right there. People don't listen to what I'm saying, just how I'm saying it. I could read a charity speech and someone would say, Kevin sounded angry. Maybe I'm just passionate. The audience chuckled nervously, not sure whether to laugh or brace for more. Jenna smiled, trying to lighten it. We love your passion. We just want to control it, Kevin finished sharply. Everybody wants to put a leash on comedy. You can joke, but not about this. You can talk, but not that way. What happened to humor being a way to deal with real life? Kevin, no one's trying to censor you, Jenna said softly. Oh, really? He stood halfway from his chair now, eyes locked on her. Because it sure feels like I gotta get permission to tell jokes these days. What's next? A committee that approves my punchlines. Jenna glanced toward the cameras. Okay, let's take a breath. Kevin laughed bitterly. A breath? You invited me here to promote my film, and now I'm in a therapy session about social media. Every interview turns into the same thing, people acting like I'm some villain who needs rehabilitation. The tension was unmistakable now. A few people in the audience fidgeted. Someone coughed in the silence. Jenna raised a calming hand. Kevin, No one's calling you a villain. Then stop treating me like one. He snapped. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The control booth signaled to cut to commercial, but Kevin wasn't finished. You know, Jenna, I respect you. I really do. But I'm tired of people pretending they want conversation when what they really want is a headline. Jenna looked visibly stung, though she kept her composure. Kevin, that's not what this is. He shook his head. Nah, I've seen this movie before. I know how it ends. Clip goes viral, everybody picks sides, and somehow I'm the bad guy again. And with that, he stood up completely. The cameras followed as he pulled off his mic, muttering under his breath, I'm done. Jenna's hand instinctively reached toward him. Kevin, wait, but Kevin was already walking off the stage, strides quick and angry, the crowd watching in stunned silence. Someone clapped awkwardly, others whispered in disbelief. The show's band scrambled to play the theme music as the screen abruptly cut to a commercial. In the control room, chaos erupted. What just happened? A producer yelled. Is he coming back? Another voice responded. No, he's in the hallway, he's leaving. Outside, Kevin brushed past the crew, jaw tight. His manager tried to calm him down. Kev, man, maybe you should cool off for a second. I'm cool, Kevin said, though his voice trembled with restrained anger. I just refuse to keep playing this game. They want real. That was real. He walked straight through the back exit, paparazzi already waiting outside. Kevin, why'd you walk out on Jenna? One shouted. Kevin stopped just long enough to say, because I'm not your headline, I'm a human being, before getting into his SUV and driving away. Back in the studio, Jenna sat silently at the table as cameras cut off. Her co-hosts avoided eye contact, the audience murmuring. Finally, she sighed and said quietly, well, that wasn't how I expected my morning to go. Within minutes, the internet exploded. The clip of Kevin storming off spread like wildfire across every platform. Twitter hashtags appeared instantly, hashtag Kevin Hart walks off, hashtag Today Show meltdown, hashtag Jenna vs Kevin. Some called Kevin courageous for standing his ground. Others said he'd overreacted and embarrassed himself on live television. Producers called emergency meetings. PR teams drafted statements. But no one could contain the wildfire once it started. By noon, the story dominated every entertainment headline. Kevin Hart storms off, Today with Jenna and Friends after heated exchange over cancel culture. And just like that, what began as a cheerful morning interview turned into one of the most talked about moments in daytime TV history. A clash between laughter and frustration, humor and humanity, live for the world to see. By the time Kevin Hart's SUV had disappeared from the curb outside NBC studios, the internet had already lit up like wildfire. The clip of him storming off, Today with Jenna and Friends, spread faster than any publicist could dream or dread. Within an hour, every entertainment outlet was replaying the moment, slowed down, zoomed in, dissected. Viewers analyzed the twitch in his jaw, the look in Jenna's eyes, the sound of his mic dropping to the floor. It was headline gold. Kevin Hart walks out live on air, comedian snaps during morning show, Hart vs. Jenna. When comedy collides with controversy. Kevin's team spent the next several hours fielding calls, texts, and damage control requests. His phone buzzed nonstop. His publicist, Lisa, left him 5 voicemails in 20 minutes. When she finally got through, her voice was strained. Kev, what were you thinking? Every outlet's running the clip. Kevin sat in his hotel suite overlooking Manhattan, still in the same clothes he wore that morning. I wasn't thinking, he said flatly. I was feeling. I'm human, remember? Lisa sighed audibly. You can't just walk out on live TV. It looks bad. You know how these things play. I don't care how it plays, Kevin snapped. I'm tired of playing anything at all. He hung up before she could answer, rubbing his temples. For years, he'd been everyone's go-to guest, funny, relatable, the life of every interview. But lately, every conversation seemed to turn into an inquisition about his past, his comments, his tone. He couldn't tell where Kevin Hart the person ended and Kevin Hart the headline began. Down the street, the producers of Today with Jenna and Friends were in full crisis mode. Jenna sat in the conference room with her team, scrolling through her phone as Twitter exploded with opinions. Her heart sank at some of the comments. He totally disrespected her. One user wrote, Jenna ambushed him, what did she expect? Said another. A third tweet read, this is why we can't have real conversations on TV anymore. Jenna sighed, putting the phone face down. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this, she said quietly. Her producer, Angela, shook her head. It's not on you. You asked a fair question. He made it a storm. But Jenna didn't agree. She'd seen the hurt behind Kevin's words. The moment he'd stood up, his frustration wasn't just about her, it was about years of feeling misunderstood, cornered, judged. She could tell. That evening, she went live on the show's social media page. Sitting in her dressing room, still in makeup from the morning, she addressed the elephant in the room. Hey everyone, she began softly. Today's interview with Kevin Hart got a little intense. Kevin's someone I deeply respect. He's one of the hardest working people in entertainment. I think emotions were high on both sides, and sometimes, that happens when people care about what they're talking about. She smiled faintly. I hope Kevin knows the door's always open for him to come back. No hard feelings, just good conversations. It was calm, diplomatic, and genuine. But across town, Kevin was scrolling through comments on his own feed, most of them supportive, but some brutal. Can't take criticism. Drama queen. Why's he always the victim? He tossed his phone onto the couch and groaned. I swear, they'll twist anything. His friend and fellow comedian, Donald Rawlings, called him up that night. Yo, you caused a whole storm, bro. You trending in 10 countries. Kevin exhaled. Yeah, because I said I'm tired of cancel culture questions. That's news now. Donald chuckled. You might have overreacted, though. Walking off live TV. That's a strong move. Maybe, Kevin admitted. But sometimes walking away is the only way people listen. The next morning, Kevin woke up to see his name still plastered everywhere. Clips, reaction videos, think pieces, everyone had an opinion. Even late-night hosts were cracking jokes about it. But something unexpected happened too. Comedians and celebrities began speaking up for him. Dave Chappelle posted on X, Kevin Hart's not wrong. Comedy used to be about freedom. Now it's a minefield. Wanda Sykes wrote, there's a difference between holding someone accountable and holding them hostage. Fans flooded Kevin's timeline with support, while others urged him to sit down with Jenna again and finish the conversation. That afternoon, Kevin posted a video on Instagram. He looked tired, but calm, hoodie on, hat low, the New York skyline faintly behind him. Let's talk about it, he said into the camera. Over 500,000 people tuned in live. I didn't storm off because I can't handle a question, he began. I stormed off because I'm done being the question. Every interview, every headline, it's the same. I'm not perfect, never claimed to be. But I've said my apologies, I've owned my mistakes. What more do y'all want? A lifetime subscription to regret. The comments flooded in. Speak your truth, we hear you, but walking off wasn't it. Kevin sighed, reading them in real time. And that's fine, you can think what you want. But don't confuse honesty with anger. Sometimes, passion looks like frustration. That's what you saw. He ended the live by saying, no hate toward Jenna. She's doing her job. I just hit my limit that morning. Happens to the best of us. The clip went viral again, but this time, the tone shifted. People called it raw and refreshingly honest. Even critics admitted it showed a side of Kevin they rarely saw, vulnerable, human, tired. A day later, Jenna responded live on her show. Kevin, if you're watching, she said, smiling at the camera, the door's still open. Let's talk again. No scripts, no pressure. Just a real conversation. For a moment, everyone thought he'd ignore it. But 2 mornings later, as Jenna started her show, the audience erupted when Kevin Hart walked back on set, unannounced. Dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, he walked up with a sheepish grin. Miss me, he said, arms open. Jenna stood, visibly surprised but delighted. Oh my gosh, you actually came back. Kevin laughed. Yeah, well, I figured if I'm gonna storm off a show, I should at least finish the interview. The crowd cheered. This time, there were no cue cards, no rehearsed questions. They talked, really talked, about fame, pressure, and the fine line between comedy and controversy. Kevin leaned forward at one point, hands clasped. You know, Jenna, it wasn't about you. It's about everything building up. You wake up one day and realize every word you say can be turned against you. I just snapped. Jenna nodded. And I get that. I think people forget that comedians are humans first. You make us laugh, but that doesn't mean you don't get to have off days. The audience applauded softly. Kevin smiled faintly. Exactly. I love making people laugh, it's all I've ever wanted to do. But lately, it feels like you gotta walk on eggshells to do it. Maybe it's on me to find a new balance. By the time the interview ended, the tension had turned into something unexpected, empathy. Jenna reached across the table and said, "I'm glad you came back." Kevin chuckled. "Me too. Next time, I'll just sip my coffee and keep my mouth shut." "Not too much," Jenna said, grinning. "We like when you speak your mind, just maybe don't walk off mid-sentence." The audience laughed, clapping warmly. Later that day, the reunion clip went viral, but this time for all the right reasons. Fans called it a redemption moment, the talk show that brought realness back to TV, and the conversation everyone needed to hear. For once, Kevin wasn't trending for controversy, he was trending for clarity. And as the cameras faded out that morning, Kevin turned to Jenna and said quietly, almost to himself, "Guess sometimes you gotta walk away to come back right." Jenna smiled. "And that's exactly what you did." The audience gave them a standing ovation. Outside, the New York sun broke through the clouds, reflecting off the studio glass, a quiet reminder that even the stormiest moments can end with light if you're brave enough to return.